Terry, what I wanted to ask you is, you spent 5 years of your life here at Rice University, a place with fine teachers, wonderful facilities, but were there some things you didn't pick up here?
Oh, gosh. I have a master's degree in geology and environmental studies, and I guess the biggest part I didn't learn about the environmental Holocaust. You know, I was living right in the middle of it. Talking about the campus itself, it is completely absent native grasses and wildflowers and things like that. It's a horticultural import from Europe. You know, it's got a lot of English gardens, and of course a lot of Italian Renaissance in it, but it didn't have the vitality of the very swamp of Houston that we live in. And then to study like I did, environmental studies, and not look at what happened with the cattle kingdom. I mean, just 250 years ago, when the white people first came here, this was Austin and all of that West Texas was grassland, you know, and you go out to West Texas now, it's a desert, and the soil was washed away. And washed away, why? Because the tragedy of the commons, you know, I mean, it happened right here, overgrazing, massive overgrazing. I've often thought it's funny. I went to the University of Texas to law school, and the symbol there is the longhorn, you know, and the longhorn is the very vehicle of the destruction of Texas. And you think, millions of tons of topsoil in such a very short period of time to create the capital, you know, the cattle kingdom. And yet today, one of the hopes for the 21st century is that cattle are raised like you're raising them, where you bring back the grasses to the prairie. I mean, you can have cattle are a part of the future, but not cattle that are raised on oil that came from Saudi Arabia and chemicals that came out of the Houston Ship Channel for fertilizers and herbicides and pesticides and parasiticides, and where you've got this kind of chemically induced fat animal that you give to make fat people, you know? I mean, you don't want to die of a heart attack, you don't want to have Alzheimer's, don't eat this crap. I mean, our cows are literally eating crap. And I grew up in the culture. I mean, here, I mean, you had this kind of European elite university.
Why do you think it failed you?
It was exactly what it was. It was the highest quality import of education to be to this essentially redneck culture that it could be. And I'm thankful for it, but I'm just saying is it wasn't here. And it's still not to a large degree. You don't get the history of ecological Holocaust is not taught here as a part of American history. Instead, it's still kind of a political military history. You know, Sam Houston, Thomas Jefferson are much more important than the cowboys.
I'm particularly anxious to make records of all the calls that the cowboys used to control the cattle, to turn them, to quiet them, maybe to stop them. Now, go along and tell me about the different calls and when and illustrate your points.
Well, I'll first say that I'll imagine them out on the drive, which is a roundup, and cattle to one side, anywhere from 100 yards off to half a mile, won't start them. The hollering I would do would be, ha, 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 hey, 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 something like that, especially if there's a rimrock behind them. The echo would be double on that, and you have to start them down a canyon or up. Then, under other conditions, for instance, after they had traveled a mile or two and slowed down a canyon, and you was wanting to push them up a little, it'd be, ha, 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 ha. That generally had effect.